Ferrari is ruining their own reputation. I don't think they even realize it. They used to be the symbol of speed, beauty, everything we thought cars could be, but somewhere along the way, the legend stopped feeling legendary. They still build rocket ships, don't get me wrong, they still conquer racetracks, but the lower the lap times go, the higher the walls around them get. Because Ferrari isn't just protecting their brand anymore, they're protecting control. They've sued their fans, banned journalists, and silenced anyone who dared question their image. The company that once inspired dreamers now punishes the very people who made it iconic. So today, we're not questioning Ferrari's engineering, we're questioning its soul. And we're gonna find out how a supercar brand built on passion turned lawsuits, NDAs, and gatekeeping into its main product. For decades now, Ferrari has turned control into currency. They handpick their buyers, curate their image, and police everything that might change the way the world sees them. And that's because Ferrari built their brand on exclusivity. And it's that very same exclusivity that might be alienating the next generation of car enthusiasts. You see, in recent years, their obsession with gatekeeping has led to controversy after controversy. And I'm not salty just because I can't afford one. Let's be honest, even if I could, I probably still wouldn't be allowed to buy one, especially not after this video. Because when you plunk down the cash to buy that shiny red Italian stallion, you don't own a Ferrari, Ferrari owns you. And that starts with their rules. Ferrari has a strict set of rules and agreements that owners must agree to, often part of the purchase agreement that you sign at the dealership. And these rules stretch from how you can service the car, how you can drive the car, how you can modify the car, and even whether or not you can sell the car. Which sounds kind of silly, right? It's your car, you can do whatever you want with it. Well, maybe that's the case for your Toyota Camry, but Ferrari has a reputation for punishing owners who break the rules. For example, in 2014, Deadmau5 wrapped his Ferrari 458 in a meme-themed Ferrari livery with Nyan Cat graphics and badges. Now, I'm not sure if some of you were even born when Nyan Cat was a thing. It was a cat with a Pop-Tart body flying on a rainbow. Yeah, I'll be honest, I don't know. It was early meme culture. And well, Deadmau5 posted his Ferrari online, as one does, and not long after, Ferrari sent him a cease and desist letter for trademark misuse. And at that point, many people probably thought, well, that's easy. They can just say it's his car, he can do whatever he wants with it. But Deadmau5 didn't fight it. He couldn't. Probably. Somewhere in the mountain of paperwork he signed when he bought that thing must have been a clause preventing him from performing modifications in poor taste. So he unwrapped the car and sold it off and ended up on the naughty list forever when it comes to buying from Ferrari. Then there's Justin Bieber. Around 2016, the Biebs decided he was going to do a Liberty Walk wide body on his Ferrari 458 and change the color from white to neon blue, a color that Ferrari never offered. Now, considering the Pop-Tart cat scenario, you can imagine it probably didn't go over well with the suits in Maranello. But then, plot twist, he said he was going to auction it off for charity. So it was all good then. You gotta think of the kids after all. But yeah, turns out Ferrari wasn't amused. That little charity was actually the final straw for Ferrari. And they revoked Justin Bieber's good standing as a Ferrari owner, meaning from now on, he couldn't just walk into a Ferrari dealer and buy a new car. And while a charity auction seems like a crazy reason to ban him, Ferrari was technically well within their rights to do it. Because JB, in addition to signing a modification in poor taste clause, signed an agreement of first right of refusal, which meant whenever he planned to sell his car, Ferrari themselves would have first dibs to buy it back. Now, in Ferrari's defense, this is kind of standard practice with supercars to prevent flippers from ruining the market, but not being able to modify your own car, not being able to sell it for charity, Ferrari code or not, it didn't sit well with people. And then we have notorious shit talker 50 Cent. In 2018, the battery died in his 488. So in typical 50 fashion, he vented on social media, called his Ferrari a lemon, and then posted it getting towed with a snarky caption. And Ferrari noticed. They always notice. But let's be honest, these are celebrities. Most of us could care less if poor old Justin Bieber can't buy a Ferrari anymore. You see, the real problem arises when you uncover that Ferrari's unsavory behavior extends not only to real enthusiasts, but even the car journalists that review their cars. Let's take my GOAT, Chris Harris, for example. In 2011, he put out an article through Jalopnik that shook Maranello. It was a tell-all about all the shady shit Ferrari has done with him over the years. Now, Chris went on to write about how Ferrari put stickier tires on their demo cars and how his press car was 2 seconds faster to 100 miles per hour than a customer car that he drove after. Yes, Ferrari was juicing their review cars to make sure they won every head-to-head, even if that meant lying to everyone involved. And then on top of that, he went on about how absolutely difficult they were to deal with. Supremely stubborn. It was their way or the autostrada. Quote, sad to say it, but the ecstasy of driving a new Ferrari is almost always eradicated by the pain of dealing with the organization. I can't tell if that was British or Australian. Now, everyone in the industry knew that dealing with Ferrari was a bit of a pill. But the big bombshell of this was, of course, Chris accusing Ferrari of optimizing press cars, and in retaliation, Ferrari banned him. No more Ferrari press cars, no more Ferrari events, and they better not hear about another journalist lending him a Ferrari. And in typical Chris Harris fashion, he reviewed a 458 Spider anyways. And you know what he said? He said it's a damn good car. You see, despite his beef with the brand, Chris Harris was first and foremost a car reviewer, and so he still gave credit where it was due for the masterpiece that was the 458 Italia. And that video went viral. And it was only after that video went viral that Ferrari called a truce, reportedly. And that's part of the point that I'm trying to make here. I'm not here to question the cars. I take Chris Harris's word as Bible, but the brand, what that prancing horse stands for, there's a lot there that rubs me the wrong way. But it's one thing when a journalist says something bad about your business practices. I can understand why Ferrari would want to fight back, but Ferrari won't even let you give them good press. Fashion designer Philip Plein posted photos of his new limited edition sneakers on top of his personal 812 Superfast, to which Ferrari sent him a lawsuit claiming he'd misused their trademark. And in the Italian courts, Philip lost that lawsuit, and he paid roughly 300,000 euros in damages. But here's the irony. His other posts of the same campaign showed McLarens and Lamborghinis, and none of them cared. Only Ferrari did. Because for Ferrari, control isn't a tactic, it's a religion. Now, granted, there is one modification that Ferrari would likely approve of, and somehow I've managed to get my hands on it. It's a quad-lock phone mount. That's right, the quad-lock suction cup mount is more than capable of handling Ferrari performance. And if the infotainment system in your Ferrari conks out, you'll be glad you had your quad-lock case-equipped phone mounted up there with its ultra-strong polycarbonate core covered in impact-absorbing TPU. And of course, your mag charger that not only keeps your phone battery topped up, but also it's ultra-convenient when paired with your mag case. Of course, if you're one of those lucky Ferrari owners whose infotainment is still working, then the quad-lock can help you ditch the wires with their wireless CarPlay and Android Auto adapter. Because if you're driving the bleeding edge of supercars, you should probably have the bleeding edge of connectivity too. Of course, if you get sick of Ferrari and want to move to Team Papaya, Quadlock even has an official line of McLaren edition cases, so you can root for an F1 team that'll actually win a championship. So no matter what you need, and whether you have a Ferrari or an F-150, Quadlock can make your drive better. Just follow our link in the description to get the best deal on your new Quadlock gear. Now, when it comes to things that Ferrari can control, owners, celebrities, the press, any and all use of their brand, if it didn't fit into their hyper narrow image, then it was destroyed with extreme prejudice. But the effect of that is trickling down, and not in the way that Ferrari wants. Like I said before, these aren't stories about bad cars, they're about a company so obsessed with protecting its image that it pushes away the people who make that image matter, the fans. Ferrari used to inspire dreamers. It's been the crown jewel of cars for almost the entire time that cars have existed. But while other brands have been busy opening doors, Ferrari has been building thicker walls. And while Ferrari might think that's a compliment, We live in an era where brands engage with fans. They remix TikToks, they reply to audience suggestions, they live in tweet replies. Brands are giving us access and a sense of belonging to their mission. There are very few people who can actually own a Ferrari. But if you ask somebody, anybody, whether they would want to buy a Ferrari, the answer a decade or two ago almost undoubtedly would have been yes. Now though, that seems like it's becoming less and less of the norm, because Ferrari's instinct is to police instead of participate, and that gap keeps growing. In my own circle of car friends, the common theme in regard to Ferrari is, why would you want a Ferrari? They'll sue you if you wrap it. Or that it's a car for old dudes, Corvette owners that hit the lotto. And if you go online, you'll see plenty of this same sentiment. Gen Z and Gen Alpha kids really don't care that much about Ferrari, especially compared to other brands, which feels like a massive shift from when an F40 or an Enzo was the poster to have on your childhood wall. And from where I'm sitting, it kind of makes sense. When you grow up watching a company punish owners for being creative, ban journalists for honesty, avoid fan culture altogether, you stop rooting for them. Before I did the research for this video, I couldn't even tell you what models of car Ferrari sold. I was that out of touch with the brand. But here's the twist. The big reason why everything I've said up to now is kind of pointless. Despite the cultural fall off, Ferrari customers aren't the ones scrolling TikTok at 2 a.m. They're not the ones arguing over coilovers versus springs on forums. They're not the Ripper legends who are subscribed to Albon and are members of our Discord like you are. They're legacy collectors, long-term clients, high net worth buyers who treat an allocation as a badge of honor. When it comes to the people that actually buy into the Scuderia, Ferrari can afford to not care about the rest of us. By all measurable metrics, what Ferrari's doing right now is working really well for them. They're delivering record profits. Every model run is seemingly sold out, and they still have this aura of exclusivity and desire that other companies like Porsche, for example, are desperately trying to copy. And this perspective makes their low-profile shtick seem more like a feature instead of a bug. By the numbers, Ferrari is thriving like never before. In 2023, the company posted its highest profits in history, and those profits have been growing while production has been limited. That year, they built just 13,663 cars. That's less than 1/10 of Lamborghini's volume. Ferrari will always deliver one car less than the market demands. Enzo Ferrari himself said that. And by holding back supply, Ferrari creates perpetual excess demand. But then you might ask, how the heck are they making more money by selling less cars? Well, Felipe Munoz, better known as Car Industry Analysis, did the breakdown for us. In 2024, the Italian brand earned 136,700 euro per car delivered. Porsche, the second most profitable brand, had to sell 7.5 vehicles to match that profit. That's not hype, that's math. And it's pretty damn hard to argue with math. Ferrari's refusal to chase volume has made its cars investment pieces that every C-suite executive needs to own. And Ferrari's stock price reflects this strength too. Since going public in 2015, Ferrari's market cap has swelled to $90 billion just this February. Today, it's top 5 for auto manufacturers. And if all of this Wall Street stuff sounds boring to you, hello, their stock ticker is RACE. That's just plain cool. And it's not just symbolic either, they're growing like they're trying to win a race. And alongside the money printing machine is that image preservation that we've been talking about. Protecting the brand's prestige at all costs is an explicit company philosophy, treated as sacrosanct. And when the world sees Ferrari exactly as Ferrari wants, all while Ferrari ensures that there are only enough Ferraris that the rich elite must fight each other for it, pay as much money as they can to get it, then Ferrari isn't failing. On the contrary, on paper, they are the blueprint for an ultra-successful supercar business. And that blueprint was actually designed by Enzo Ferrari himself. Enzo founded Ferrari in 1947 after a disagreement with Alfa Romeo on how their race team should operate. So after the war, he got into his own car business, and all this man cared about was racing. He sold the road cars to fund his racing addiction, and his philosophy was clear. Racing is the soul of Ferrari and everything else is secondary. Reportedly, he rarely attended car shows or mingled with customers, and instead he stayed in Maranello, often only seen from his office window at the Fiorano test track. Publicity was not in his playbook. Winning on track was the ultimate PR, and this led to this almost mythic image of Ferrari. If you wanted to buy one, you had to know him personally or have a connection in some way, and Enzo set the precedence of scarcity almost immediately. And throughout the 1950s and 1960s, Ferraris were ultra rare, built essentially by hand and offered only to those who Enzo deemed worthy. And even then, his treatment towards those customers was still standoffish, for lack of a better word, like Ferruccio Lamborghini. You probably heard the story. He bought a Ferrari. He said it drove rough like a race car, even though these were road cars. He said the clutch sucked and needed a rebuild way too often. And what did Enzo say? He said,
"Oh, you can't say that.
It's a Ferrari!
It's a shitbox."
He told him to stick to tractors and let the pros build the cars. So Ferruccio took up the challenge and made Lamborghini. And whether this Lambo origin story is totally true or not, the one constant in all these stories is Enzo's pride. Enzo cultivated an image that Ferrari exists on a higher plane than everyone else. Racing glory above all, road cars simply a means to an end. And that attitude later solidified into corporate policy, capping production and always protecting the brand identity. Ferrari today still runs on that same old DNA.
We are very keen to maintain our exclusivity. If you want a Ferrari, you have to desire. We produce far less cars than the demand. This is important for marketing position and to maintain the used market value.
But you see, the very next line was about this delicate balancing act that Ferrari now seeks. He said, but the change is that we need to guarantee to have exclusivity even with more volume. Ferrari was a business after all, so they had to maintain the exclusivity, but with more cars on market to make more money. And one way of doing this was implementing the Ferrari-approved Certified Pre-Owned program. Basically, used Ferraris are returned to as new condition by Ferrari directly and then resold as Ferrari certified, which is also why new Ferraris are often sold with the first right of refusal clause. New Ferrari buyers have to sell their cars back to Ferrari, Ferrari reconditions them, and then sells them on to new people who are slightly too broke to buy a brand new Ferrari. It's their way of getting new customers to make more money, all while still maintaining the exclusiveness of buying a new Ferrari. Yet at the exact same time, Ferrari doesn't want every celebrity or millionaire to be a customer of theirs. So when Ferrari bans a Justin Bieber or a deadmau5, that policy is arguably enhancing that allure for the people who are still on the inside. The real flex now isn't just owning the Ferrari, it's being selected by Ferrari, given the privilege to own one. Yeah, I just bought a 296. Justin Bieber can't even get one. The product isn't the car, it's the invitation. And the owner isn't you, it's the prancing horse on the nose of your car. And that was all well and good until kinda recently, because the world that Ferrari was born into has changed. The automotive culture today has shifted from prestige to access. Just look at the field. Lamborghini, for example, is selling cars as much as it sells visibility. They've never run a traditional TV commercial, but they were the first supercar brand on TikTok. They post memes, they share fan edits, they even launched an official SoundCloud account a few years ago. Their social strategy targets the youngest audience in the luxury segment. They thrive on visibility. They use gaming partnerships like Rocket League, lifestyle collabs, and their The Real Space esports series connects directly with new fans. Lamborghini leads all supercar manufacturers in social engagement, and it's deliberate. A lot of us may remember the Christmas ad they did on YouTube where they showed a kid dreaming about a Lamborghini and then they gave him a ride along. There were no celebrities in that ad. There were no Italian supermodels, no Grey Poupon fanciness. It was just an ad about real car lovers dreaming about their dream car. Lamborghini has realized that for better or worse, aspiration starts online these days. And then there's McLaren, a brand built on access through motorsports. Their Formula One team became a digital powerhouse over the last decade. The McLaren Unboxed YouTube series, behind the scenes, race vlogs, live Q&As that gave fans unprecedented visibility into team life that we just never saw before. And between 2019 and 2021, McLaren's social following grew by over 20%, one of the fastest rates of any car maker, which was completely driven by its focus on video-first content and approachability. In 2022, McLaren was the only F1 team to launch its new F1 car live to fans online, embracing that instantaneous feedback. It was all, hey chat, what do you think of the new MCL 36? And more importantly, the same week they unveiled the McLaren Lego Technic. That thing was badass. They were the first F1 team to enter the esports space. McLaren Shadow, their in-house esports project, gives the best sim racers a seat on the pro esports team. But if you want to see what the modern transparency of the most exclusive supercars looks like, just look at remats. I can almost guarantee that none of you watching can afford a rematch. And if you can, how did you get this far in the video? Don't you have billion-dollar business deals to be closing? Anyways, Remats revealed the Nevera R by releasing a pixel of the image every time somebody commented on their post as a part of a strategy that grew their follower count by 83% year over year. Mate Remats, the man himself behind the company, personally leads factory tours. He walks the fans through technical breakdowns. He shares progress updates straight from the workshop, all while driving his E30 to work. It's a level of transparency that is almost unheard of in the hypercar world, next to maybe Koenigsegg. And it doesn't stop there. Mate has appeared on nearly every major automotive YouTube channel, turning Remats into one of the most visible brands in the space simply by just showing up and sharing the process. That kind of exposure makes a brand feel surprisingly accessible and relatable, even though, yeah, this thing costs way more than a Ferrari. But somehow you still relate to Remats more because Mate just sounds like a regular old car guy. These brands feel present in the daily feed. They're in your comments, they're in your video games, they're in your YouTube queue. And marketing analysts suggest that Gen Z and millennials value personality and openness more than anything else in a brand. And that's why we see this shift away from prestige and more towards access. Something that I think has real consequences down the line for Ferrari. Because 30 or 40 or 50 years from now, when today's young enthusiasts are old enough and finally have enough money to burn, they probably won't be shopping for Ferraris. They'll be shopping for Lambos, McLarens, or some other brand that stayed on top of everyone's TikTok algorithm. Because they grew up watching SVJs do highway pulls on YouTube, McLaren's behind-the-scenes vlogs, or Mate Remats personally greeting every buyer who walks through the factory doors, or not even buyers, just regular people. Ferrari just won't be the dream car anymore. Because it's hard to desire something that always goes out of its way to make it feel like it'll always be out of your reach. All while continually yelling to the world that you gotta do it their way or no way. Still controlling, still litigious, still the old man's club that looks down their nose at the rest of us. And it's kind of a bummer, honestly, because I still remember being so excited the first time I saw 458 Italia. I remember yelling in my mom's minivan whenever I saw an F430. But like I said earlier, I couldn't even tell you what models Ferrari sells today. I don't know how much power they make. I don't even know what they look like. The irony is, though, that even though Ferrari's actions show that they might be okay with this, Ferrari themselves are starting to show that maybe they aren't okay. Because in 2021, they decided to purposefully make a pivot in their marketing, specifically to attract the younger demographic. They announced their new fashion line. They held a dramatic fashion show right at the Maranello factory itself, and models walking down the assembly line with various Ferraris suspended in the background, which might seem like just another marketing campaign, but it came alongside a very blunt admission from Ferrari's chief brand diversification officer, Nicola Boari. He was asked, "Aren't you scared of becoming too approachable?" To which he replied, "I think the risk instead is, if we don't do this, we become irrelevant." Prestige was once Ferrari's greatest strength, but now, by their own admission, it's the path to undermining their relevance. In the same year as the fashion show, they did put their brand in Fortnite, offering cosmetic skins and the 296 GTB as an in-game vehicle. But those were also tied to product launches, controlled campaigns. The merch in the game was for sale in real life, so even when they were being hip to the jive, they still wanted to keep a tight grip on everything. Eventually, they launched their own Ferrari esports series and have since engaged gaming communities to an extent, recognizing the trend set by McLaren. And Ferrari's newfound marketing efforts, while very welcome, is still limited. It's still calculated, because Ferrari still believes that overexposure can dilute the brand. For the most part, Ferrari still prefers traditional channels and owned media, has an official Ferrari magazine, produces glossy short films for YouTube, and leverages its Formula One team's popularity to keep the brand front and center. You're not gonna see Ferrari accounts roasting people in the IG comments or doing challenges on TikTok. To Maranello, exposure still does not hold a candle to exclusivity. So even though Ferrari has shown they can budge a little on their philosophy, there's still this cultural disconnect. They're nibbling at approachability, but the core tone remains admire from afar. But from where I'm sitting, and from a lot of people's perspective, we don't know what they sell, and we don't care enough to find out. What are the cars today on bedroom posters of kids growing up, or maybe the home screen background on their iPad? Lambos? Porsches? McLarens? Maybe, but probably not a Ferrari. But still, at least for now, everything I hate about Ferrari is everything that's working for them. They are unreachable and uncompromising, but to Ferrari's inner circle, it's proof that the myth is still alive and keeps them paying the big bucks for the latest and greatest in Rosso Scuderia. And of course, we have to remember, Ferrari's conservatism in its brand image does not equal stagnation in their engineering. Because when it comes to building supercars with the latest and greatest in technology, Ferrari is still Ferrari. Not once in this butthurt rant by my broke self have I questioned the actual cars. And that's for good reason. Mainly because the only Italian stallion I've been in is your mom. But also because most of the cars that Ferrari is pushing out are a masterclass in hybrid electric performance. They have the 296 GTB and GTS, the SF90, and then they have the SF90 XX Stradale, which is a 1,000 horsepower track special with just 799 units made. And even at $800,000 a piece, all the allocations were snapped up before I even knew this car existed. Ferrari's ability to quietly develop and sell such advanced machines to their clients speaks to a loyal demand. And it's not just in the production line where they've evolved, it's motorsports too. In endurance racing, Ferrari made a fairy tale comeback to Le Mans in 2023, and they won the 24 Hours of Le Mans overall on their first attempt. 50 years since their last factory effort. Beating Porsche and Toyota was a monumental statement. Even after decades away from endurance racing, Ferrari's racing excellence remains respected. And between the classic V12s, the cutting-edge hybrids, the endurance racing, hell, even the SUV, it all shows that Ferrari is adapting, just on its own terms. And even though your favorite car influencer probably hates or sold their SF90 because it lacked feel, or got rid of their 812 because it lived at the repair shop, it doesn't change the fact that Ferrari continues to make cars that are some of the fastest in the world and continues selling them to the people they want to sell them to. But in a couple years' time, don't be surprised if things start to look a little bit different. Because in a new world built on access, exclusivity starts to look like absence. And if brands like Ferrari don't move forward, then they might just be left behind. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, then you'll love our video on how Toyota's CEO is single-handedly saving the affordable sports car. I'll see you in the next one.